A lot of medical news happening. You know what I do when that happens. I got to get with Dr. Jesse Lopez. He is, of course, a great friend of ours. Been on the program a million times, educated you and me throughout the pandemic and then some. Doc, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm doing good. I'm celebrating. I just found out that my son and his wife are going to have another baby, so it's going to be my seventh grandchild.
Congratulations. That's beautiful. Listen, growing families with a guy like you as the sort of the leader, the paternal leader of everything. I like it. The patriarch, if you will. Can we say patriarch in this day and age or not?
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if we're allowed to say that. I think we're getting away from the wokeism. I think we can say patriarch. It's good to see you. You can go to inspiration.health, and he does telemedicine, inspiration.health, Dr. Jesse Lopez. There's a lot going on. I want to start with the FDA shakeup. I didn't know anything about women's hormones because clearly I'm not a woman, and I didn't know what the warning labels were. You're telling me that there's some black box warning that was on hormones for women, hormones that are meant to help them, that didn't need to be there? Fill me in. What does this mean?
Yeah, ever since the basically quote Hallmark study back in approximately 2002, a black box warning was put on the package inserts of all hormone replacement therapy as far as the potentiality of cancer, blood clots, etc. And as a result, physicians across this country and women were scared of utilizing bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. As a matter of fact, Joe, we've been utilizing hormone therapy of the bioidentical type in my practice for years, 10 plus years, part of our hormonal and metabolic program
Okay.
that's in conjunction with our obesity program. And we have just tried so hard to get physicians to understand that it is the exact opposite. And this WHI study that was done was severely flawed. And they utilized this warning on a flawed study, so these women have not had access to these hormones for years and years and years. And actually, other studies have shown it's probably resulted in about 150,000 women dying prematurely
Oh,
between
wow.
that time and 2024. So it's very significant, and I'm so glad that they did it because the women need to have access to this for better quality of life.
Well,
And,
Doc, I want to stop you for a second. Because
yeah.
you're in this realm of reading these studies and understanding the studies. When you say the studies and the research was flawed, how? I mean, how do you know that?
Well, number one, it was designed only to look at coronary heart disease. It was not
Okay.
designed to look at menopause and the use of hormone replacement therapy. So that's significant because they just extrapolated the data over to menopause. Number two, the women that were involved were mostly menopausal. They were all menopausal women. They did not take into account women from perimenopausal states or women who did not have a uterus. So
Right.
these were all women who had their uterus. As well, the women in the age group of 40 to 45 were left out. Additionally, they utilized a synthetic brand of hormone therapy that was conjugated equine estrogen, which was initially produced from horse urine, and medroxyprogesterone, which is a synthetic progesterone. They didn't look at any other aspects of these medications, such as bioidentical estradiol. They didn't look at bioidentical progesterone. They just looked at these medicines, and they didn't look at other routes of administration like a transdermal route. So they took this study and lumped all hormone therapy into this study and said, don't do it, it's going to cause cancer. So that's just a small amount of the things that were flawed. There were many other things as well.
And what we're finding out now is Dr. Jesse Lopez, inspiration.health. He puts these studies on his website, also does telemedicine, inspiration.health. Go there and say hello to Dr. Jesse. It turns out instead of causing cancer or increasing the risk, it actually decreases the risk of cancer if you do it right.
Absolutely. And that is something that my colleagues refuse to see or they're not trained to see. Joe, a woman has three types of estrogen. I'm going to tell you real quick: estrone, estradiol, and estriol. And most of the time, physicians test for total estrogens. When they test a woman, they should use saliva or blood testing, and most menopausal women will have an abundance of estrone. And estrone naturally is a proliferative estrogen that can increase cellular replication in the breast, uterus, and ovaries. So a woman without proper hormone balance can just naturally be at a risk for increased malignancy. Bioidentical hormone therapy corrects that ratio so they get more of the good estrogens to have what we call a good estrogen quotient. And this kind of thing is not really being taught in our medical schools. As a matter of fact, my medical students that we have rotate through here say that very thing. We've never heard this before. We've never been
Wow.
taught this before. And so it's a real eye opener from that perspective. And that doesn't just, include women's health, even though it's not studied in the WHI, it includes men's health. Men go to see their doctor. They want to get on testosterone replacement therapy. They do blood tests. They have a low level at 300. The range is about 250 to 1100. And the doctor says, oh, you're fine. You're just getting old. See you later. Well, these guys have a real problem. And so if you do saliva testing, you can see that they are significantly deficient. And it's really interesting. We're supposed to be providing good health and preventing disease process. And we are constantly making decisions in the medical world that promotes disease instead of preventing disease.
And what's interesting, Jesse, is that we believe what a doctor says. I think doctors like you are so necessary because she'll say, this is what the latest study says. This is why the last one was flawed. This is why this one is better. Always make sure that you do your own research too. I mean, you always provide the research on the website, inspiration.health. So many doctors, I believe, have a God complex where if I say it, it's right, do it, and that's it. We actually fell into that abyss during the pandemic, obviously, right, where people like you were excoriated because you dared say, listen, I'm not so sure this is okay. And people like McCullen, people like Urso, all these other people, you've been out front of this on the front lines, unafraid to say, this is a problem for me. I can't recommend it, and here's why. Why are other doctors less apt to do what you're willing to do?
There's just this mindset that whenever something comes forth, it's never challenged. It's just readily looked at and accepted. And right, what I teach my medical students is to read the data, read it carefully, and look at the study inclusion group. Look at the secondary benefits that came about. Are they looking at absolute risk or relative risk? Because, that's how they got away with getting the COVID vaccine into the mainstream healthcare system, was by using a relative risk instead of an absolute risk. So these kind of things are important for our young physicians to learn. But again, most of our physicians are controlled by corporate medicine. So if they make a decision to go against the grain, they're going to lose their jobs. And that is the sad part of all of this. So what I really want to encourage patients to do is to get multiple opinions when they're talking to a physician about a particular significant issue of concern. Because we have to turn this around. It's just like COVID, like you said, Joe. I have had obstetrician gynecologists say, why are you putting this 55-year-old woman on hormone replacement therapy? That's dangerous. It's going to cause cancer. And I have this, attempt at a scholarly debate on the telephone, and they end up hanging up on me. And it's sad because the data is there to support it, that this is helpful, and the data that supported them not prescribing it is very weak. So I applaud Secretary Kennedy and what he's doing. It's going to help so many women. I hope physicians are less afraid to prescribe it or recommend it because of potential liability by having the black box label removed.
Yeah. And I appreciate you getting the information out there. And to say a study was flawed is something that I don't think the establishment wants to do either. If it's flawed, say that it was flawed. I'm glad that you will. And then you'll say this is what the new study shows, and it's actually the opposite of what we thought. It's Dr. Jesse Lopez, inspiration.health, inspiration.health. Let's talk about Tylenol. It was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. President Trump walks out and only gives the information he was given by all the doctors standing around him and by the Health and Human Services Secretary Kennedy. And he says, listen, if you're pregnant, you shouldn't be taking acetaminophen. And then almost immediately on TikTok, you had very pregnant women taking Tylenol to say, I'm not going to listen to Trump, knowing that there's a thought process that says there could be a connection, at least prenatally, between some sort of on the spectrum autism and acetaminophen. Tell me what the truth is. Is there a problem with acetaminophen and Tylenol taken by pregnant women?
Absolutely. And those women really are abusing their unborn child when they do that. They're just doing that out of spite and arrogance. And I'm telling you, it's a danger. Joe, if you pick up a bottle of Tylenol, it will say, if you are pregnant, consult your physician. It doesn't say take a handful of it and have a good time, take it every 6 hours. It says consult your physician. That's pretty interesting that it says that. Why does it say that? It says that because there have been established studies that show the direct correlation between perinatal and or prenatal use of acetaminophen with significant neurological developmental disorders. Now, this particular study that they were referring to, and we're going to have this on our website, it's a powerful study. was published in Environmental Health just in May of 2005. And what they did was they looked at all of the studies that they could find. And out of 27 out of the 46 studies, it reported a positive association between the significant link of prenatal acetaminophen use and neurological or neurodevelopmental disorders, including autism. And it's important to note that in this study, they actually used the word autism. They used the word autism spectrum disorder. And these children, when they were born, had higher problems than the children that were exposed to Tylenol or excessive Tylenol. And what's very interesting is that this study looked specifically at 6 studies that dealt with autism spectrum disorder. And it conclusively stated that there was a strong evidence of relationship between prenatal acetaminophen use and the increased risk of autism in children. It stated the word autism in the study. It's listed in the study. This is not made up science. It's just Trump derangement syndrome. Anything that comes out of the administration that is good and helpful, people just go all the way over to the other side just for the sake of being combative. And it's dangerous.
What blows my mind, well, it is dangerous. What blows my mind is that we all know that when you and I were kids, we're same generation, about the same age. When we were kids, we didn't know anybody who had autism. I didn't know anybody. There was one fat kid in school. We didn't have obesity that was a problem at that point either. So it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. Don't we all want to know why we now have such a huge number, a massive number of people that are obese, or a massive number of people that are autistic or on the spectrum? It's like we just take it that it's okay that it went from 1 in 10,000 down to 1 in 36 or something. It's like we act like nothing happened. Jesse, this isn't political. Don't we all want to know why this is happening?
Well, yes, I mean, I would think we would want to, because this is our children. And this whole problem regarding autism is multifactorial. And I believe that Secretary Kennedy is looking to find these different multifactorial causes so that we can address them. This is one of the causes. Now, I'm not wanting to scare, upset any women who are with child out there that have taken a Tylenol or two. This is a very dose-dependent thing. So basically, the more you take, the increased potentiality of this occurring, and data shows that it does occur. Yeah. So this is something that you want to try not to do for the benefit of your child. But when you take that and you combine that with a heavy vaccination schedule that basically just bombards the child's immune system, even with vaccines that they don't need because they are not risk of that disease process like hepatitis A and hepatitis B, you're overwhelming that poor, immature immune system in terms of its development. And all of this has effect on the neurological system. So it's multifactorial, and we've got to get to all of these factors and get them dealt with.
It is Dr. Jesse Lopez, inspiration.health. All these studies will be up there for you to go and peruse, go read for yourself. Plus, he does telemedicine. A lot of people who watch my program and listen to my program have dealt with Dr. Jesse. They're very happy about that. Inspiration.health is the website. I had Del Bigtree on the other day. He told me about this Henry Ford research that has now come out that shows exactly what people like you were concerned about the entire time when it comes to the COVID vaccine. Not the COVID vaccines, when it comes to higher rates of chronic illness because of the vaccine schedule that we're all on. Again, in your generation and mine, we had a few vaccines, polio, smallpox, whatever. Now it's like 74 vaccines by the time you're like 18. So there has been a massive influx or uptick in how many vaccines we're making people take after they're being born until they become an adult. And now we're also seeing a correlated, it seems, increase in the number of chronic illnesses. Talk to me about that.
Well, I think that this is one of the criminal aspects of what has happened to us in medicine, because the very same thing that happened over COVID happened to this particular study. And ICANN really were the ones that were initiated trying to get this study looked at and done. Right. And then when the data was shown, they wouldn't publish it. They wouldn't release it. They did the same thing with the COVID data on ivermectin. They tried to squelch that data. They didn't want patients to see it. The data on remdesivir, they didn't want people to see it. It's the same thing. We have a real problem in the medical industry that we are doing this And it usually has a connection to either somebody doesn't want to lose their job, they don't want to have to retire early, they don't want to lose a stipend from a pharmaceutical company. And, to me, that's just the most unethical thing that can happen in medicine. We're here in the trenches every day. I'm seeing patients every day fighting the good fight. So if there is good data that can help me guide my patients, then for the sake and the love of humanity, release it. Let us look at it. Let us judge as physicians what we can do. If I had this data, one of the things that I would do is I would definitely make sure that any of my patients that ask about vaccines is that don't do hepatitis B, don't do hepatitis A unless somebody in your household has hepatitis A and hepatitis B for a newborn infant. They can get that when they go to medical school, like my son just did.
Yeah.
Get your hepatitis B vaccine. You're going to be encountering patients with hepatitis B. Okay, that's when you can do it. It's like we get in this mindset that we can't change and have a difference of opinion or thought. Even pediatricians that promote a modified vaccination schedule get significant grief from their colleagues in the American Academy of Pediatrics. Why does it have to be that way? We're all independent.
So somebody's going to have a baby. They're watching or they're listening right now. I've got people in my family that are pregnant. You have people in your family that are pregnant. What is your suggestion? No vaccines at all when you're born? Wait a couple of months? Wait a couple of years? What is the recommendation?
The recommendation on the modified vaccine is that they spread them out on the modified vaccine schedule. I tell my children to not vaccinate their children until their immune system has matured till at least the 3-year-old to 5-year-old point.
Right.
And that decreases, I believe, their chances of an immune system that gets on fire, that then attacks their neurological system, which could lead to things like autism. They're not going to die. They're healthy. And this is where I want patients to ask their physicians when they go in for a vaccine. What is the real risk of my child dying from hepatitis B or RSV in terms of the entire generation, in terms of the entire population?
Right.
When they tell you the mortality rate is like a 0.002%, you have to think long and hard. Does that really justify putting your child at risk at such a young age?
It's great advice. It really is. Go to the website, inspiration.health, inspiration.health. Dr. Jesse does the research so that we don't have to. All these studies are up there on his website. He also does telemedicine. Jesse, we frankly blow through 17 minutes like it's nothing. I appreciate all the time and the access and your great friendship as well. And congratulations on being granddad number 7. I'm going to be number 3 soon over here on this side. We're catching up to you. But we appreciate you. All right, Jesse. We'll talk very soon. Appreciate you. We're back after this. Stay right here.